What's up, 11:15? We doing all right today? Good deal. We're so glad to see you guys hanging out with us for the second week of our message series, People Problems. And so what we're doing in this series is we're wanting to set you up to win in one of the most important areas of your life, but also one of the most challenging areas of your life, your relationships. Now, last week, we laid a very important foundation on how to have healthy relationships. And we said, in your life and mine, we need to choose our relationships carefully. And so in our lives, we have crowds of people we're around, a community of people that's closer to us, and a core of people that are the closest relationships that we have. And we said the closer people get to you, the more careful we need to be, because the people who are closest to you often have the greatest impact and influence over you. But here's what I know, okay? Choosing your relationships carefully does not automatically guarantee you healthy relationships. Do you know that? In fact, here's what I've discovered. The closer someone is to you, the higher the odds there is of them just getting on your nerves, okay? Like, that's just true for me, okay? It doesn't matter how much you love that person. You can be married to them. You could have raised them. They could have raised you. You maybe could work with them. You could even go to school or play sports with them. But eventually, someone close to you is going to say something or do something that bothers you. And here's what I've noticed, what we do when that happens, okay? When someone does something that bothers us, we have conversations with people who aren't even in the room. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Like, come on, somebody. So you're driving down the road in your car all by yourself, okay? And you're having this whole conversation in your head on what you would say to that person, right? Like you're in the McDonald's drive-thru and no one's in the car with you, but you're developing like the perfect comeback you would say if they said what you think they're going to say to you. Man, you're in the shower in the morning winning an argument that hasn't even happened yet. Come on, how many of you are undefeated in imaginary arguments? Let me see your hands. That's what I thought, okay? But when you actually see that person, though, what do? What do you say? You don't say any of that, okay? You're like, oh, I'm good. Like, nothing's wrong. Everything's great. You don't say a word of that. And here's the thing. We'll laugh at stuff like that. But some of us have gotten really good at having conversations in our head that we need to be having in our relationships. And so we'll talk to ourselves about it, won't we? We'll talk to our spouse about it or our friends about it. We'll talk to anyone who will listen about it except the person we need to actually talk to. And because we don't communicate well, what eventually happens is there's a breakdown in the relationship. And everything goes wrong. And that's why right out of the gate today, I just want to give you a thought that I pray sticks with you and give you a thought that I hope you remember today. Guys, what you won't talk about, you can't work through. And so right now in our culture, there's a myth when it comes to relationships. And the myth is this. The myth is healthy relationships are relationships that never have problems. And I'm just here today to say, man, that is the farthest thing from the truth. Healthy marriages, aren't marriages where difficult things aren't ever addressed. Healthy families aren't families where everyone agrees on everything all the time. Healthy friendships aren't friendships where nobody ever gets their feelings hurt. Healthy relationships aren't relationships where hard conversations never happen. They're relationships where they can happen because that's what leads to health and that's what leads to growth. And that's why our big idea for today that we're going to build on is this right here. Healthy relationships require hard conversations. Now, here's the deal, especially in a room like this, okay? I'm assuming that most of you are already on board with that, okay? Like, I don't need to spend a lot of time convincing you that healthy relationships require hard conversations. And so today, I don't want to spend time convincing you you need to have hard conversations. What I want to do is I want to help you learn how to have hard conversations in a healthy way that will give you healthier relationships. How do I have hard conversations and say difficult things to our spouse, our kids, our coworkers, our classmates, our teammates in a way that doesn't break the relationship down and leads to breakthrough and health? And there's a passage in the book of Proverbs I want to share with you today that'll help us discover how to start doing that. This is Proverbs chapter 27, verses 5 through 6. Listen to what Solomon, the author of Proverbs, one of the wisest men to ever live in the history of the world apart from Jesus, says. He says, "Better is open rebuke than hidden love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend, and profuse are the kisses of an enemy." Now, those right there are very strong words because Solomon puts two things together that we don't normally put together. He puts love and rebuke, kind of a churchy word for calling people out, love and rebuke together. He puts friendships and wounds together. See, most of us, when we think about somebody who loves us, we think of someone who encourages us, who motivates us, who inspires us, who is always there for us. And all of those things matter. But Solomon says that there are also moments when the most loving thing someone can do for you in a relationship is tell you something that you don't want to hear, but it's going to help you. In other words, it's possible for you to genuinely love somebody, but hide from the conversation love requires you to have. You know what you should say, you know what would be helpful, but it's hidden love. You never communicate it and you never share it with them. So you see something that's wrong. You see something that's bothering you. You see something that needs to change. You see something in someone that's going to harm, wreck, and ruin their life, but instead of talking about it, communicating it to them in a healthy way, having a hard conversation, you bury it and you keep it to yourself. And you'll tell yourself things like this: hey, it's not that big of a deal. I'll get over it. Hey, I don't want to make things awkward for our relationship. I don't want to start an argument. Hey, what if I hurt their feelings by having an uncomfortable or hard conversation with them? And sometimes we'll even convince ourselves that not saying anything is the most loving thing we can do. But the Bible teaches us something different. He says, better is open rebuke, an open, honest, but hard conversation than hidden love. Because sometimes, guys, love speaks up. The most loving thing you can do is have that hard and difficult conversation. And so one of the ways we can do this, what the Bible is teaching us to do and what the Bible is teaching us to be, is that we need to come to a place where we don't just tell people what they want to hear. We need to tell people what they need to hear. Hello? In the relationships we have and choose, we need people who will tell us what we need to hear as well, not just what we want to hear. How many of you know people who only tell people what they want to hear, not what they need to hear? You know people like that? Like, oh, man, that outfit looks great on you. I mean, you look like a busted can of biscuits in it, but I'm not going to tell you that, okay? I'm going to tell you what you want to hear instead of what you need to hear. Hey, I think you have a great personality. I mean, everyone hates you and doesn't want to be around you, but, the problem is them. It's not you, okay? Hey, you're not living above your means. I mean, you're always complaining you don't have any money and you can't go do anything, but that's not my business. I'm going to tell you what you want to hear instead of what you really need to hear. And Solomon says, better is open rebuke than hidden love. Solomon says, It is better for a friend to wound you and tell you what you need to hear because they have your best interest in mind, rather than it is for someone to tell you what you want to hear because they only have their best interest in mind. Am I making sense, somebody? Solomon takes it a step further, though, in verse 6. If you look back in Proverbs 27, he says, faithful are the wounds of a friend. And so there's a difference in someone having a hard conversation with you because they want to hurt you, and a difference in someone having a hard conversation with you because they want to help you. And let me say it this way. Some wounds are intended to hurt you, but some wounds are intended to help you. How many of you know that? And so think about a surgeon. A surgeon will literally take a scalpel, like a knife, okay, and cut you open. If a random person in the Food City parking lot took a knife and cut you open this afternoon, that would not be good, okay? You need to call the police or defend yourself in those moments. It's the same action. It's a very different intention. Because when a surgeon wounds you, they're not trying to harm you. They're actually trying to help you. And that's what Solomon says a healthy relationship looks like. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Some are intended to hurt. Some are intended to help. And so sometimes somebody who loves you will say something that stings, but it's not because they hate you and are trying to tear you down. It's because they love you too much to stand by and watch you do something that will tear you apart. Guys, you need people in your life who love you enough to say, hey, the way you're talking to your wife right now is wrong. It's not okay. You need people who will say, man, I'm worried about the decisions you're making financially. I know the road that leads down. You need people in your life who say, man, I've been watching the way you've been treating your kids lately, and that ain't you. What's going on? Sometimes it's, hey, you keep blaming everyone else for your problems, but I may think it's something you're doing we need to fix that's causing the problems. Sometimes it's not correcting someone else for something they're doing in their life. Sometimes it's correcting someone or wounding someone that's causing a problem between you. So, hey, when you said that, man, it hurt me. We need to talk about that. Hey, I love you, but I can't keep allowing this type of behavior in the relationship. Man, those aren't easy conversations, are they? Those are hard conversations. Those conversations can hurt and wound. But sometimes the wound of an honest conversation is what keeps a relationship from experiencing a much deeper wound later in their life. You got me? And that brings me back to what I started the service with. What you won't talk about, you can't work through. And in your relationships and mine, you can ignore it, you can bury it, you can pretend that it doesn't bother you. You can rehearse every argument and conversation in your head. You can talk to everyone else about it. But if the relationship is going to move forward, if the relationship is going to be healthy and have a breakthrough, not a breakdown, we have to be willing to talk about what's actually going on. And if we're going to learn how to do that and move our communication towards this direction, a healthy way of communication, here's where I think we have to start, okay? First, I would say, don't avoid what needs to be said. And so let's be honest in the room today. How many of you, the reason you avoid hard conversations with people is because you just don't like conflict? Let me see who's, okay, not as much as the 9:30 service. Okay, that gives me a better idea of who I can talk to later. And so, man, for those of you who raised your hands, you just don't like conflict, man, you want things to be good. You want everyone to get along. You want peace in your relationships, and that's a good thing. The problem is, though, we often confuse peace with avoidance. So, hey, if I avoid the problem, if I avoid the situation, we just don't talk about it at all, then we're going to be good and we're going to have peace. We think not bringing it up or keeping everyone happy will give us that peace. But guys, sometimes pursuing peace actually requires you to step into a situation that you normally would want to avoid. That's why I love what Jesus said in Matthew chapter 5, verse 9. We studied the Sermon on the Mount in the fall, and we covered some of this in week 1. But Jesus said, "Blessed are the," what's he say? "Peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." And so again, I shared this thought right here back in June. And I'll be honest, in the 5 years I've had the privilege of being your pastor, I've had more people come up to me in the lobby and say, "Man, that is making a difference. That is changing things in my life to see how this is distinguished." And so let me share this with you. Notice what Jesus says. He doesn't say, "Blessed are the peacekeepers," did he? So how many of you know people who all they want to do is just keep the peace? Hey, don't talk about that. Don't make them angry. Don't bring that up. Don't rock the boat. Don't poke the bear. Keeping the peace. That's not what Jesus said. He doesn't say we as his followers should be keepers. He says we should be peacemakers. And so see the difference. Peacekeepers avoid conflict, but peacemakers will step into that conflict to bring healing and health. Peacekeepers will pretend everything's okay. Peacemakers help make things right. Peacekeepers avoid hard conversations. Peacemakers are willing to have hard conversations. Peacekeepers say, "Man, I hope it gets better." Peacemakers say, "No, I will step into this and I will make it better." Peacekeepers wait for the other person to make the first move. Peacemakers say, "I'm going to make the first move." You're stepping into it to bring peace. Maybe for you, being a peacekeeper means sending a text message. "Hey, we need to talk about this." Sometimes being a peacemaker means, "Hey, I need to sit down with my spouse. I need to call my son or daughter to come into the living room. I need to have a conversation with a real person I've been having in my head for 6 months." Because what you don't talk about, you can't work through. As a side note, leading up to this series, we put a board out in our lobby and we just asked a question. Hey, what's the biggest relationship challenge you're facing right now? What would you like to hear about in a message series on relationships? And outside of family, which we'll talk about more in coming weeks, boundaries in relationships was one of the most submitted things. Here are your questions. How do I set healthy boundaries? How do I deal with pushy people? How do I love somebody without being codependent and enabling them? And what we're talking about right here, don't avoid what you should talk about, is part of the answer. Because I don't know if you realize this or not, guys, healthy boundaries require communication. Hello? You can't expect somebody to respect a boundary that you've never communicated to them. It don't work that way. They don't know. At some point, you've got to be willing to say, "Hey, I love you, but I can't continue doing this. Hey, I'm willing to help you, but I'm not going to keep enabling you. Hey, if you speak to me that way, I'm going to end this conversation." You're communicating that boundary line in that relationship. And that's uncomfortable. I get it. That's hard. But healthy relationships require hard conversations. Am I making sense? And so several years ago, I had someone who was very close to me rip into my wife over, honestly, something that she was just trying to help with. And the way they talked to her and the things that were said crossed all kind of lines. Now, here's what you need to know about me. I'm a pretty easygoing dude, okay? Like if you haven't figured that out already. There's not much that can happen to me or said about me that's going to get me angry and to go after somebody. But if you say something and go after my wife, or if you say something or go after my kids, I'll just say you'll meet a version of your pastor we don't put on the website, okay? Like I'm just going to leave it at that. And so I hear about that, and I immediately picked up the phone. I'm not avoiding a conversation I should have. Immediately picked up the phone, called that person. When they answered, I said, hey, I need to have a hard conversation with you. I'm going to talk, and you're going to listen. What you said was wrong. You will not speak to my wife that way again. If there's an issue moving forward, you call me. But you will not treat her that way, because if you do treat her that way, this relationship will drastically change in a way you will not like. Is that clear? Now, was that conversation easy? No. Did that conversation need to happen? Absolutely. And I know right now, as I'm talking about having hard conversations and not avoiding what you should talk through, I recognize that some of you right now, like your heart rate is increasing. Like your palms are getting sweaty. Your butt cheeks are getting really tight, okay? Like you're very nervous and you're like, I don't want to do this. This is weird. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. Man, what if I have this conversation and it damages the relationship? What if they get mad? What if things are awkward or uncomfortable? But let me ask you something. What would have happened in my relationship with my wife if I didn't have that conversation? What would have happened if I knew somebody had crossed the line with her and I just stayed quiet because I don't want to make things uncomfortable? Avoiding that conversation wasn't going to make the relationship any better, and it won't for years. Having the conversation gives us an opportunity to address what is wrong and establish healthy changes needed to move forward. And as I was praying for you this week, I just prayed that you would understand this. You can love somebody, but you can still draw a line. Setting a boundary doesn't mean you hate somebody. Sometimes because you love someone and you value that relationship, you have to clearly communicate and have hard conversations so that things can change and move towards health. And I'll just be honest with you today as your pastor, looking back on that conversation, did I get everything right in how I handled that situation? Maybe, maybe not. I want to come back to that here in a little bit. So here's a question for you as you think about your life and not avoiding conversations you should be having. What conversation have you been avoiding? Like maybe you are one of those people who says, I just want to keep the peace. Maybe you've been waiting on them to make the first move. But guys, healthy relationships require hard conversations, and you can't work through what you won't talk about. Now, before you go to have that conversation, okay, before you have the hard, difficult one, there's something we need to do first, okay? First, I want to say you need to check your heart before you open your mouth. I say that because some of you heard the first point. Don't avoid what you should talk through. And right now, you ready, okay? You're like, Pastor, finally a message that I can apply to my life. I got 3 meetings this afternoon already. I've been texting while you've been talking to get these hard conversations lined up. I've just been waiting to chamber that bullet and fire it. And I'd just say, like hold on, Rambo. It'll be okay. Pump the brakes. Let me share a very important truth with you. So before you have a hard conversation with somebody else, what you need to do and what I need to do is have an honest conversation with ourselves. And just ask this question. Why am I having this conversation? There's a big difference in having a conversation with somebody because you want to help them and having a hard conversation with somebody because you want to hurt them. There's a difference between, hey, I want to work through this so we can have a breakthrough and get healthier and better, and, well, I'm about to just tell them exactly what I think, okay, and give them a piece of my mind. Sometimes we'll call things hard conversations when really we're just angry and we're looking for an opportunity to unload on someone. You got me? But the hard conversation isn't to just get something off your chest. The goal of a hard conversation is to help make something right. And you got to be honest with yourself on why you're wanting to do that. We actually see this with Jesus Christ, the Son of God. So in Matthew chapter 16, we see a hard conversation take place. Jesus tells his disciples, his team, his core, that he's about to go into the city of Jerusalem. He's about to be crucified on a cross. He's going to be buried in a tomb and on the third day raised from the dead. And as Jesus is having this conversation, we see that Peter, one of his followers, took him aside and began to rebuke Jesus, like calling him out. That's awfully bold, like, far be it from you, Lord. This shall never happen to you. And watch what Jesus says in verse 23. But he turned and said to Peter, get behind me, Satan. You are a hindrance to me. For you are not setting your mind on the things of God, but you are setting your mind on the things of man. Now, just as a side note, when you go to have hard conversations with people, you probably don't want to lead with the line Jesus led with, okay? Like, babe, I think you're spending too much money on fast food here lately. Get behind me, Satan. That's not the way to go about doing this, But man, just see what's happening here, okay? Peter probably thought that he was helping Jesus. Like he thought, Jesus, I'm protecting you. I'm looking out for you. I'm not going to let that happen to you. But Jesus knew something that Peter didn't. Peter was trying to protect Jesus from the very thing Jesus came to do. Jesus came to this earth to lay down his life as a sacrifice for sins. The cross wasn't an interruption to Jesus' mission. The cross was Jesus' mission. And that's why Jesus says, Peter, you're a hindrance to me because you're not thinking about God's purposes and why he has me here. You're just thinking about yourself. And because Jesus loved Peter, he had a hard conversation and corrected Peter. But man, don't miss this. He's not having this conversation so he can get something off his chest. He's not trying to embarrass Peter or win an argument. He was addressing something that genuinely needed to be addressed. And that's the heart check for us today. And so before you have that conversation, here's a great question to ask yourself. Am I trying to make something right, or am I trying to prove that I'm right? There's a big difference, isn't there? And a lot of people, a lot of Christians are really good at winning an argument and making a point. Not a lot of Christians are good at winning people and making a difference. Checking your heart before you open your mouth matters. If your goal is to embarrass someone, get even with someone, punish someone, or just give them a piece of your mind, you're probably not ready to have that hard conversation. Check your heart before you open your mouth, because healthy relationships require hard conversations, and hard conversations need the right heart. So once you know what needs to be said, like I'm not avoiding it. Once you've checked your heart and your motive for why you're going to have a hard conversation with someone else, there's one more question. Hey, how do I say it? Okay? And in your life and mine, what leads to healthy communication is to say the right thing in the right way. And so if you've decided, man, I'm seeing something I can't let go. I know my heart and motive is right. I'm for this person. I'm not against this person. We're going to have this conversation. I really want to make this right. You're going to sit down to have it. You've got to say the right thing in the right way. In fact, if I can word flip this for a little bit, let me give you the contrast of this. If you say the right thing in the wrong way, you know what? You're still wrong. You can be right about the issue all day long and wrong in your attitude. You can be right about what happened and wrong in your timing and the way you say it. You can be right about what needs to change, but communicate it in a way that's going to make things worse. How many of you know this? God doesn't care just about what you say. He cares about how you say it. This is why Paul in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15 said that we, as followers of Jesus, need to be speaking the truth in love. Notice, it's not just speak the truth. How many of you are those people? Some of you really love that part of the verse. Pastor, I'm just being honest. I'm just shooting straight and calling it like it is. Call a spade a spade. Nobody ever said I'm telling it just like it is before they said anything encouraging. Can I just say that out loud? The truth is important. The truth matters. But Paul doesn't just say speak the truth. He says speak the truth in love. Guys, truth without love can be cruel. But love without truth isn't love. You need both. Speak the truth in a loving way. And so let me give you a few really practical tools you can use that's going to help you do that right there, okay? And then I want to land the plane with a challenge we can take and apply to our lives to move our relationships in this direction. And so if you're going to have hard conversations, speak the truth in love, not avoid what you need to address. First, a best practice is to choose the right time to do this, okay? So let me say this. Your timing in having hard conversations matters. You got me? And so here's what I've learned about my sweet, loving, amazing wife, okay? I have learned it's not okay to have serious or hard conversations with her past 9 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, okay? Like that's not the best time to have a serious or hard conversation with her. Why? Long day, decompressing with the boys. Like she needs a minute. That's not a good time to engage her. I've also learned with my sweet, amazing, loving wife that if she says, hey, like we're at the line right now, we need to press pause and breathe a little bit and come back and talk about this at a later time. What you don't do, like me, is say, oh, no, we're just going to go ahead and talk about it. Like, oh, here's the line. Let's step across that and keep talking about what you don't want to talk about. No, not the right time matters. Sometimes, man, listen to me. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can say is, hey, whoever it is, hey, there's something important I need to talk to you about. When would be a good time? See how simple that is? But it makes all the difference in the world. The conversation needs to happen. It may not just be right now. Find and choose the right time to do that. I'd also say another best practice to have hard conversations and speak the truth in love is to talk to them, not about them. And I know that seems so obvious as I share that with you today, but man, listen, a lot of people, they'll talk to anyone else who will listen, anyone on social media, anyone they work with about what's going on, but never talk to the person the problem is with. That's why Jesus said in Matthew chapter 18 that if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault. Watch this, novel concept, between you and him alone. Go tell them. Not your group text, not your Facebook, not the 6 people who can't do anything about it. Go to them and talk through the problem. If you've got a problem with me, and everybody knows about it except me, then we have another problem. Now, I don't have the opportunity to fix what I don't know. And the same thing is true for the other people in your life, and it's also true for you in other people's lives. Talk to them, not about them. I'd also say when you go to have hard conversations, man, you need to listen as much as you speak. James 1:19, one of my favorite verses in the New Testament, one I'm kind of like pounding into my boys right now. Let every person be, what's he say? I'm glad one person's like, yeah, no, I want to hear it. Be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. You know what most of us do? We are slow to hear, quick to speak, and quick to anger, aren't we? Don't walk into a conversation assuming you know everything about the problem and everything about the situation. Be quick to hear. One of my favorite books, probably top 5, is a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by a guy named Stephen Covey. A lot of you shaking your head, you know the book. One of my favorite principles in one of my favorite books is seek to understand more than to be understood. Seek to understand more than to be understood. Don't walk in assuming you know everything. Ask, hey, here's how I'm seeing the problem in the situation. Am I right? Am I missing something? Hey, when you said this, here's how I took it. I don't think you would mean it that way, but that's how I took it. Help me see where you're coming from. Help me see what you meant by that. See how questions make a difference? It offers an opportunity to get clarity around the situation. Because sometimes if you'll do that, you'll walk into a situation and you discover you didn't have the whole story. And sometimes it's even worse. Sometimes you were wrong. And if you were wrong, own it in that situation. Listen more than you speak. And lastly, just best practice for you to do this in your everyday life. Guys, address the problem without attacking the person. Listen, our next series for the month of September is a series on communications called Watch Your Mouth. It's a good play on words. You'll hear this again in that series. In your life and mine, we have to learn how to attack problems without attacking people, because there's a difference. There's a difference in you saying, hey, when you said that, it hurt me, versus you're a terrible person and that's why you said what you said. There's a difference between, hey, I need some help with this, like I need some help, versus you never helped me with anything. There's a difference. Attacking problems, not people. Be careful. I tell people this in counseling. Be very careful using words like never and always. Hey, you always. Hey, you never. Because now you're not talking about what happened. You're attacking the person and who they are. Talk about the issue. Talk about how that problem is affecting their relationship. Talk about what needs to change. But don't destroy somebody's character and life to make your point. Because if you say the right thing in the wrong way, guess what? You're wrong. And by the way, remember that conversation I told you about earlier when someone had ripped into my wife? I called them. I use language, I'm going to talk, and you're going to listen. Now here's the thing. Did that conversation need to happen? Yeah. Did a boundary need to be communicated? 100%. But I would not recommend always leading with, I'm going to talk and you're going to listen. Because you can have the right message and still need to work on the delivery. You can still ask questions and gain clarity about the situation. You can better understand what's going on, and that'll lead to healthier two-way communication versus one side. Your goal in communication is not to walk away saying, well, I told them. The goal of communication is to communicate in a way that gives the relationship the best opportunity to change and the best opportunity to move towards healing, because healthy relationships require healthy conversations. Healthy relationships require hard conversations. And healthy relationships require us to learn how to navigate those hard conversations in a healthy way. And so as we wrap it up today, as we think about our lives just this afternoon, this week, Monday's right around the corner, yay. I want to give you a question that I asked you a little bit earlier in today's message. The question's this: what conversation have you been avoiding? Because I have a feeling that as I've just been talking today, and since I asked you that probably 20 minutes ago, there's a name, there's a face, there's a person, there's a problem that's been right here the entire morning. It may be your spouse or a parent. It may be a classmate or a teammate, students. It may be someone who hurt you. It may have been a misunderstanding with a coworker. It may be a boundary you need to establish you've been putting off. I don't know what it is for everyone in every seat in the room today, but what conversation have you been avoiding? Guys, whatever it is, remember, you can't work through what you won't talk about. And this week, I want to challenge you to do two things, okay? As you think about your life and as you think about your relationships, first, I want to challenge you to work through this week's lesson in the relationship field guide, okay? If you didn't get one of these, we passed them out last week. There's copies at the information desk as you leave. I'd love for every single one of you to have this and be working through it together. And don't just chuck this in the back seat of your car and say, oh, that's great, never look at it again. Okay, man, take it, open it, get into God's word in a spirit of prayer. And just ask God, is there a conversation I need to have? This guide will walk you through that and help you with it. Is there something in my heart I need to deal with first? How can I handle this relationship and situation in a way that honors you? I want you to get into the field guide. Get into God's word. Let God's word get into you. And then there's a second thing, an action I want you to take coming out of today's message. I want to challenge you to make a move toward the relationship. So don't just think about it. Don't just pray about it. Don't just rehearse it in your head another 47 times. Make a move. Send that text. Hey, can we grab lunch or coffee this week? There's something important I want to talk to you about. Can I get on your calendar to chat through it with you? Ask your spouse if y'all can sit down one night and talk through something this week. Take a step towards establishing a boundary with someone you need to establish a boundary with. Maybe your move is just reaching out to that person who's close to you and saying, hey, there's something going on between us, and I love you too much to leave it there. Can we talk about this? Can we work through this together? Whatever it is in your life and your situation, make a move towards the relationship. You don't got to fix everything in one conversation, but take that first step. Take that next step. Take that move God is calling you to make. Because healthy relationships require hard conversations. And what you won't talk about, you can't work through. Don't avoid what needs to be said. Check your heart before you open your mouth. Say the right thing in the right way. And this week, make a move towards health and healing and restoration in your relationships. Let me pray that God would help us with that. Father, we thank you for your word and for how it speaks to us and helps us and challenges us in our life. God, I confess that hard conversations are hard. They're awkward and uncomfortable. And so this week, I pray that you would give us the strength to do what we cannot do ourselves. Give us boldness and courage to speak the truth, but to speak the truth in love in a way that points towards your Son, Jesus Christ. Help us to have a heart that is to restore people, not to condemn people, to help people, not to hurt people. And I pray that as we have that heart and not avoid these conversations and make a move, that it would lead to breakthrough, that it would lead to healing and restoration, that it would lead to us having healthier relationships, and that it would lead to us being a healthy relationship for someone else. We love you. We praise you. We thank you. And God, I just ask that you would transform us by what we've heard today. Don't just inform us by it, so that our lives can change, our faith can grow, and we can be more like your Son, Jesus Christ. And I ask these things in your name. Amen.